Welcome to the One Year Book of Mormon. A non-Mormon reads through the Book of Mormon. Alma 10, Chapter Overview. Amulek's narrative of the events surrounding him having been visited by the angel who told him to take in Alma, then their subsequent fiery 1800s style preaching in his city. Verse 2 gives Amulek's genealogy, saying that he was a descendant of Aminadi, and it was that same Aminadi who interpreted the writing which was upon the wall of the temple, which was written by the finger of God. Talk about totally out of the blue. This is the first time that Aminadi or any writing on any wall of any temple is mentioned. While the Mormon might claim that this is a proof of authenticity because the Book of Mormon casually mentions this detail and isn't at pains to clarify or add more information, we must remember that the Book of Mormon claims to have been an abridgment of more detailed records, so this is sloppy editing at least. Verse 3 tells us that Lehi was a descendant of Manasseh. Previously in 1 Nephi, we were only told that Lehi was a descendant of the biblical Joseph, so this means Lehi couldn't have been from the tribe of Ephraim. Verses 4 and 5 are Amulek relating that he had never cared much for the things of God, having hardened his heart to them. Then verse 6 tells us that this is the 10th year of the reign of the judges, a slight discrepancy with the 1830 version, which says it's the reign of our judges, not just the judges, and specifically says the 4th day of this 7th month. So apparently Amulek was converted only some hours before he took Alma into his home, back in Alma 8, since we read here in verse 7 that Amulek was on a journey to see a near family member when an angel appeared to him and told him to go back home to feed Alma. Why God would use someone with a hardened heart, I have no idea, because elsewhere in the Book of Mormon we read that God gives these things to people who have soft hearts or to have not hardened hearts. So it makes no sense really. Putting the 4th day of the 7th month with Alma, having journeyed 3 days from Melech to Ammonihah in Alma 8:6, an argument could be made that Alma left Melech on the 1st day of the 10th month, which would have been a huge no-no and really an impossibility for someone who claimed to keep the law of Moses, because the 1st day of the 7th month, according to Leviticus 23:24, was to be a Sabbath and a day of holy convocation, not a day to take a trip. While I can see a Mormon arguing that since we're not told when Alma started preaching in Ammonihah, it's conceivable that his getting kicked out of Ammonihah was after several days of preaching, so that he arrived there well before the 1st day of the 7th month. Still, since the Book of Mormon repeatedly claims that the good people keep the law of Moses, the complete lack of recognition of any of these holy days is highly conspicuous by its absence. Verse 12 finally recognizes the two-witness rule after a fashion, though most of the Book of Mormon has been content to have only one witness testify to anything. Verse 12 says, "And now when Amulek had spoken these words, the people began to be astonished, seeing there was more than one witness who testified of the things whereof they were accused, and also of the things which were to come, according to the spirit of the prophecy which was in them." But don't get too used to having two witnesses, because at the time that I'm making this video, I have read all the way through Alma 33 or more, and I have not yet seen multiple witnesses invoked for any other thing other than this one verse. Verse 14 speaks of lawyers and seems to have a very modern understanding of them as those who prosecute or defend in trials. The biblical understanding of lawyers, however, were those who were well versed in the law, so that they might better follow the law or accuse others of not following the law, but not in trials as such. The whole of Amulek's speech to his fellows sounds as if it were taken from various parts of the New Testament, being partly drawn from John the Baptist's condemnation of the men of his day, partly from Jesus' denunciations, and partly from Peter's and Paul's sermons in Acts. Finally, in verse 31, we're introduced to a man named Zeezrom, who was the foremost to accuse Amulek and Alma, he being one of the most expert among them. And we're also told that the object of these lawyers was to get gain, which they got according to their employ. In other words, They made money when cases went to trial, or something similar to that.